Hey guys, this is McCoy Buck, and I'm going to show you how to make a walk cycle like this little guy here. This is a character I made in Anime Studio last night. His name is Purple. So this walk cycle is going to be for kind of an advanced difficulty level. It's important that you already know Anime Studio, also know bones, rigging, and how to do simple animation. I'm not going to show you exactly how to rig your character and everything, but I will show you how I did put together the character so you kind of got an idea of how he's going to be working. If you'd like to skip that step and go straight to the animation, definitely do so. I'll upload the character file for you to download and animate along. Let's get started. Alright, so to kind of show you the breakdown of the character here, he is basically set up in a bone. And then I have a group layer, and I labeled this purple. This is the name of the character I created here. So you have your arm, and I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see pretty good here. I'm going to delete all these bones real quick. Okay, so I have the arm. You can see the simple shape that it's created. The back arm is simply like that as well. Your mouth is just consisting of 3 points and a stroke. Your eyebrow, same way. Eyes is a simple circle, and I also have a stroke here. This is the paintbrush I'm using. Your head is just a simple circle with your brush here. Leg, this one is going to be this leg right here. I have a simple stroke. All the arm and the leg, those are just simply strokes. So I have 3 points going down for the top, and then the knee, and then the foot. And then I have 2 points going right here. Same thing with his back leg. It's the exact same thing going on there. And then I have the body, which basically consists of, I'll highlight it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 points, that's it, okay? And then I got my other arm and then my other leg, okay? The bones is a simple method that I use. This is simply going to your bone and what is called your use selected bone for flexi binding. You do need your bone strength for your flexi binding. However, you can do whatever kind of binding you want. So basically this binding allows me to make his arms more bendy, his body as it moves up and down, his legs kind of look like chicken legs right now. Going down to the legs themselves, I have these legs set up in a IK stretch. So if I go here to my bone constraints, you can see my maximum IK stretch. You can set it around 1.60, 1.30, basically wherever you feel comfortable. So this is about the stretchiness of my character here. And then I have my target bones. This bone is targeted to this ankle bone right here. So basically this is my B17 to B10. And as you can see here, target bone is targeted to B17. If I go to here, this is going to be targeted to B18, which is this target bone right here. Okay, so that's basically the setup of this character. There's really not much to it. Like I said, it's a very simple character. Okay, so one of the most important things that you need to set up when you're doing a walk animation is your poses. So we're going to have 2 key poses, or our contact positions. And then we're going to have another pose for our passing position. And these are very critical to set up so that you can see how your walk cycle is basically going to be like. So I created 2 different lines here. This is basically going to each heel of the foot here. This is just kind of give me a guideline here to know where the ground is so I can stay consistent with the feet and everything. So one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to set up the contact positions. So the contact position is basically the 2 positions of the foot, or of the legs I should say, where they are both on the ground before one of the legs lifts up and goes to the passing position. So typically like your walk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my 2 positions. I'm not going to create the foot too far front ahead. I want to keep everything pretty consistent there. And I want to give it a little bit of a toe bend. So something like that. That looks pretty good. So one of the things that you probably notice right here is his leg is hyperextending. And that's because in my original design, I should have actually had my bones, my stroke and my bones kind of at an angle so that Anime Studio know, okay, this is where the leg wants to go. Because basically it wants to try to make the leg go that direction. Well, I can switch that around by simply grabbing this transform bone tool right here, coming to the ankle and then dragging left, and it's going to switch that back to the other position. I'll go ahead and set that right now so that Anime Studio knows. So I'll drag that there. Perfect. Okay. So I just want to make sure everything is good to go there, and then that's looking pretty good. So that's going to be the first position. Now, I'm going to set this walk cycle up in a continuous looping cycle. So I'm going to set this up in 25 frames. So in 25 frames, this exact position will repeat itself right here, and then it will loop itself and keep going over and over and over again. So one of the things that we're going to do next is we're going to count this out by 6 frames. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I want to stay at a consistent 6 frames. Right here would be my passing position, but I'm not going to do anything with that yet. I'm going to set up my other key pose or my other key contact position. So I'm going to go another 6 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right now I'm on frame 13 so that my legs are set up the other way for my contact position. So if you look back on the original design here, so if I go back here, you can see that this leg is further back behind the leg right here. Let's do the same for our contact positions. So we'll use onion skin, which I have on right now, to kind of just help me get a guideline as to where the legs are going to be. So I'm going to put it slightly behind, probably right about there, okay? Because I don't want to bring this leg all the way up forward just like that other leg, because I want to keep a little bit of a difference there. I don't want to make it too consistent. And what I'm doing with the toe here, you can see I'm doing a slight bend, and there's a reason for this, and I'll show you in a little bit. But it's basically just so that it has kind of a flopping motion when he flops down on the ground for his toes. Kind of give it a more animated look there. And then for the back of the leg, I'm going to place it slightly behind the other heel here. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just bring up the toe right there. All right, that looks pretty good. So again, I'm not doing his legs super far apart from each other. I'm just keeping his little legs in between his little body there, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my next key pose, which is my contact position starting over. So I'm just essentially just going to copy everything from frame 1 to frame 25. Okay, so I had a bone highlighted there. Be sure to click off any bones or anything like that. Or just make sure you're just copy and pasting your black channels, because your bone, your red bone here, the red bone channel is what's the bone that is selected. But the black channels there is basically all of the global animation going on there. So your global keyframes essentially. So the next pose after the contact position that we're going to set up is the original contact position that we had before. So I'm just going to select these keyframes, and I'm going to copy the first one, because we're basically going to have this repeat in a cycle, and paste that there. As you can see there, it kind of pasted that a little weird. So let me help that out a little bit. So I'm going to set my onion skin there, and I'm going to rotate this so that that was matching the original footing position there. Okay, so that's good, just like that. All right, so I don't know why that didn't copy properly there. So we have our main contact position, our contact position, and then the exact contact position we had before. Now we need to do the passing position when one foot passes past the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to count out 6 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so right here, I'm going to have the front leg here passing over and going into this contact position. So essentially when your leg is going to be passing over, you're going to have your one leg kind of right about there. So for this character, I'll have his leg there. I'm going to have his leg now flat down on the ground, his foot flat on the ground. And then I'm going to have this leg come over. Make sure I don't mess those bones up too bad. Have this leg come over as it comes to pass the other leg. So something like that. So that works pretty good. So now when he goes to pass over, it's going to look something like that. And we're going to do the same thing for 19. So frame 19 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counted out from frame 13. And we're going to do the exact same thing, except for this leg. So this leg now, if I can reach it, this front leg here is going to be flat on the ground. And we'll use our onion skin there to kind of help us out to let us know where to pose this leg. So we're going to pose it just a little bit further back than the front leg there. I'm trying to get this to straighten out this bone here. Okay, there we go. Oh, not quite. Okay, so basically just trying to get this as flat as you can. We'll have to tweak this a little bit because this stroke isn't working for some reason. But something like that. So just have your foot flat down on the ground, and then we're going to do our passing position for this foot now. And that passing position is going to look something like that. Okay. And it's important to kind of, when you're having your passing position, basically when you're walking, you're basically falling forward and you're continually catching yourself. It's kind of how Richard Williams explained it in one of his books. So that's kind of how it is with the walk cycle as well. So you're kind of constantly falling forward. So you kind of want to give that motion that the character is falling forward as well. Okay. And then it's going to pass over into that position. Okay. So you have your contact, your passing position, your contact position, passing position, and then your contact position. Awesome. Okay, so now let's break that down. Let's look at one of these legs. So we're going to look at the front leg first, and we're going to break this down to make sure everything's working properly. So from right here, his leg is going to pick off the ground. His foot is going to pick up off the ground, and it's kind of got that little bit of a bend to it. So right about here, midway, I want to take that bend out, and I'll make his foot straight. So when it gets to this passing position here, his foot is straight. And then when it comes to here to the contact position, I want to have his toes curve up a little bit there towards his body. Because right about here, 2 frames in, I'm going to have his foot slap down on the ground. So right about here, his foot is going to plant straight down on the ground right there. Okay, so it's going to go just like that. And then it's going to pass into the passing position. And then right here, it's going to pick up to continue that walk cycle. So it'll loop right back to here, pick up, and continue where it was. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the other leg. So this one, we're going to do 1, 2 frames. We're going to plant that foot down on the ground. And again, this is something that you don't have to do. This is just something how I want my character to look in this particular animation. I want to look like he has the feet flopping down on the ground, kind of like a duck. So we're going to come here now to this position. Everything's still flat on the ground, looking good, looking good. Okay, so right about here, it's lifting, and I don't want the foot to quite lift yet, so I'm just going to bring that down just a little bit, slightly more into the ground there. Okay, and then when it lifts, about halfway, right about there, I'm going to straighten out his foot. Somewhere around there. Goes to the passing position, his foot is straight. Goes to the contact position, boom, perfect. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do now is we're going to now focus on the up-down of his body. So something really cool with our target bones, because we now have our target bones planted into the ground and we have basically where everything's at, we can now do some pretty cool movements with this. So we have our stretch here, our IK stretching, and we can do legs bending. As you can see, the legs are bending. So that's really cool. So one of the things I'm going to do is from this position, this is basically from your 2 contact positions, your foot is pushing up off the ground and lifting your body up. That's kind of your highest point during your walk cycle. So let's kind of exaggerate that a little bit. So something like that. Okay. And then typically when your foot catches on the ground, probably a little bit after catching on the ground, so probably around here, this is going to be your lowest point. However, I want to exaggerate my lowest point to be my passing position. This will kind of give him a bouncing look, so kind of like a jolly joyful, I don't know, walking cycle here. So he's going to go from way up here to down here, bouncing on his knee there. And then we're going to bring that to the next frame there, the next key pose. And I am going to copy that main keyframe that I just created. And I'm going to paste that there so you can see it's going to put that back up. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy that keyframe, and I'm going to copy that keyframe to put him back up again. So now he's going to go down, up, down, up. Perfect. Now what I want to look at is his legs just to make sure everything looks good. Make sure there's not any weird popping or anything like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So as his leg is passing as well, both knees are bending. Awesome. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so now that we have our legs, the next thing that we're going to work on is our arms. Now, I'm going to keep this as simple as possible to show you how to set up your walk cycle. I'm not going to really do overlapping action or anything like that. If you want to see additional principles of animation being applied to this, let me know in the comments. I will make a new video. We'll basically take this to part 2 and do some really cool effects for his whole body. But we're just going to do a really simple walk cycle because I just want you to get the basics down. So most importantly, know that you have your 2 contact positions. So you have your first contact position here, your second contact position there. In between, you're going to have your passing position, okay? And then just make sure that it depends, but about 2 frames in is what I do. Make sure the foot is on the ground. You don't want it to slowly drop down to the ground. And then once you have your foot leave the ground, make sure to straighten out your toes or leave your toes curved. It's totally up to you. You're the animator. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to his arms. Now, with a walk, let me take off my bones here for a second. With a walk, every time you are walking, you're always going to have your leg opposite of your arms, obviously, when you're walking. So let's do that. So let's set this character's arms up to about here. And I want to kind of have him kind of in a slight of a march there. But one of the things that I forgot that I want to do is rather than have him walking upright, I'm going to have him walking a little bit more relaxed. Okay, so something like that. All right. And then I'm going to turn my onion skin off. And then I'm going to start working on his arms now, and I'm going to make those arms work for this walk cycle here. Okay, so I'm going to grab this back arm and just kind of bring that up a little bit there. Back arm, I don't really need that up too far. I'm going to have the back arm drop a little bit behind him. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next position here where this is going to be the complete opposite. So the other arm is going to be up right about here. Back arm is kind of going to be right about here. And I probably won't have it that high. I'll work with it as I go because I just kind of got to get an idea of how I want to set up this walk cycle. Okay, so now I have his arms kind of swinging out to his sides there, going up to his front. So he's briskly walking there, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my bones back because what I want to do is I want to copy all of these keyframes and I want to take those first bones that I created there on frame 1 and paste them into the last frame there. All right, very good. So that's going to look something like this. Okay, so it's just kind of a really basic arm walk cycle there. Really just kind of a basic walk cycle there with his arms swinging back and forth. Okay, so nothing too fancy. Now, one of the next things that I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of create some sort of rotation to his body. So rotation in his hips, rotation in his arms. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to turn my bones back on. This one's now going to be a little bit tricky. You're probably going to have to hide some bones because Anime Studios sees all these bones connected right here. And it's like, whoa, what do you want me to do? Because I basically want to take one of these bones and I want to translate it. And it looks like it's like not even letting me do anything right now. Let's select that bone. Okay, so I want to translate it like that, but I'm trying to select this bone. Oh, looks like it's going to let me do it. So what I'm going to do is let's just do what I was going to do, which was hide these bones first. So I'm just going to hide these 2 bones, get those out of the way. So you're just going to select the 2 bones, go to hide selected bones, and that'll give you more easier workspace there. So now what I want to do is I want to make these legs here actually move, rotate backwards and forwards. So as his foot is forward here. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a keyframe. That's most important. That's what I want to do. And then when his leg goes forward here, I want to bring his leg forward as well. Somewhere right about there. And just keep an eye on your whole walk cycle here. Make sure everything's still working okay. So his leg goes back and then forward. And then we're going to have it go back into the position it was just in. And we might have to exaggerate that a little bit. We'll see here in a minute. Okay, so his leg's going to go forward and then back. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. So we're going to do that for our back leg now. So in this forward position, we're going to have this a little bit more forward. And then it's going to go to the completed position here. And we're going to move that a little bit more backward. Okay, so you just kind of keep an eye on what you're doing here to make sure everything's working properly. So if you imagine those were hips and they're rotating backwards and forwards, you want to keep it consistent as far as see, that's a little bit too far back. So I want to move that just a little bit forward there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the rotation of these 2 bones as they're rotating amongst each other. Okay, and that looks pretty good there. So now that I just did that and my total attention was on there, I got to go back to my legs again, and I got to make sure everything's still working there. So I'm going to go through this really quick. Leg is bending, coming up over top of the other. Okay, so now I'm seeing something there. The foot is going through the ground. If I erase the ground, this wouldn't be a problem, but I have my ground totally visible, so I'm going to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take with my manipulate bones tool, and I'm just going to move that up. Okay, just kind of play with it. Right now I'm on my key position here, so I'm not creating any additional keyframes. I'm just adjusting the ones that I've already created. And it's kind of hard with these strokes. As you can see, it's like paint. So these are paint strokes that I basically used. And it's kind of going through the ground there. But I just want to get the entirety of that foot to make sure it works good there. Okay. And then that looks like it's picking up in the ground there. So I'm going to basically just take that leg, and I'm just going to move that up just a little bit higher. So when he picks up his leg, he picks it up a little bit higher, a little bit quicker, so it doesn't drag on the ground. And then I'm going to do the same with this leg. Well, that one's looking good. Okay, that looks good. Picks up. Great. Okay, awesome. So now he's leaned back. He's happy. He's smiling. We got our rotation in our hips. Now let's do the same thing for our arms. So same thing. I'm now going to, because these bones are a little bit trickier, I'm going to hide all of these bones here. I'm going to hide the backbone and that bone there. And I'm going to go hide selected bones. Okay. Because now what I want to do is I want to match this with that. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. So instead of moving it with the legs, with the hips, we're going to move the shoulders with the arm. Okay, so we're going to take that particular keyframe there, and because his arm is going forward, we're going to rotate that forward just a little bit as well. And then it's going to go backward to the original position. So this is the original position right here. I'll just copy that keyframe, put it right there. And then I will grab the original keyframe as well and put it right there. Okay. So that gives it just a little rotation to make it look like his shoulders are rotating, or his body is rotating at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my bones, and I'm going to bring show all bones. And this particular bone that I have highlighted, I am going to now hide that selected bone. Okay, and I might need to, no, that should be fine. With this bone selected now, I'm going to create a keyframe there, get that one going. I'm going to bring that bone a little bit further back. And then when the arms go forward at frame 12, I'm going to bring that arm forward as well. So again, after this, I'll bring back both my bones and kind of see that distance there to make sure that distance is equal on that rotation so that it looks good all the way through. And so I'm going to go to bones and then I'm going to go show all bones. Okay. Now I'm looking at these 2 points right here. So I could see the distance there. And that distance is pretty well maintained between those two arms there. So that looks pretty good. So now that we have everything set up as far as our legs here, the last thing that we're going to do is our point animation. But because we have all of our bone animation set up for our legs and our arm movements, let's go ahead and let's create a cycle for that so we can see what this thing should really be looking like. So like I was saying, the red channel is your selected bones. The black channel is your overall bones, so your whole global layer there. So let me go ahead and select both of these, and I'm going to put this on a cycle. And I'm going to set this on a relative cycle for now. And I'm going to set that at 23 frames. And so what this is going to do is it's going to run all the way through the animation. And because this keyframe is the exact same as these keyframes, I'm going to have it cycle back to that exact keyframe after, because I don't want to hold that pose for 2 seconds. It wouldn't make sense. So let me go ahead and play this out. Okay, so you got your happy little guy there. Very basic animation. If you need to, you can turn off the bones and just kind of take a look at what you're seeing here. So I like his hip rotation. Not a big fan of the arm rotation. That's because it's more linear, like I was saying. Hip rotation looks pretty good there, though. So you can work with the arm rotation. I would give it sort of an arc, possibly downwards. So as the arm is passing towards the other position there. Let's see. So right about here, like in the passing position, I would take one of these arms. I would take both of them actually. And I would just kind of arc them down. And I would take those same positions there for both of those bones. Because that's your passing position, you kind of want those to both be equal. Make sure I can highlight the right bone there. And I'm going to take that keyframe that I just created and I'm going to paste it onto frame 19. So those should now be traveling in some sort of an arc there. So let's see if that's what it's doing. There you go. So you got a little bit of a better rotation. Not so linear. It kind of looks a little bit better, but could use a little bit more work. But for time's sake, just to keep this tutorial to a pretty good amount there, the next thing that we're going to do, or the last thing I should say, is his face. We're going to do the face rotation. Now this is very easy to do. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to open up our file here, open up our group bone here. We're going to go to his, let's choose his eyes first. So I'm going to take his eyes, and I know at frame 1, his eyes is going to be in that one place there. I'm going to turn my points back on. And I'm just going to hit Control A and T on the keyboard. And I'm just going to set up my point animation keyframe. Then I'm going to go to frame 12 here. And this is where everything's going to be brought back. I want to make sure his head or something is at least matching his walk cycle here. So I'm going to move his eyes backwards to kind of give it an illusion of a head rotation without bringing out his other set of eyes there because I don't have any created. Now again, the same thing applies. Kind of helps to have some sort of an arc there. You can see a slight arc that I created. Now, to stay consistent, I want to remember that the eyebrow is slightly further than that eye. But what I want to do first is I'm going to set my end keyframe on frame 25 here, so that this works in a rotation manner there. going backwards and forwards. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set my cycle. Oops, not bounce. I'm going to set up my cycle. Do this as a relative at 23 frames. Perfect. Now I'm going to go to my eyebrows. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Create my keyframes first for my point animation. Go to frame 12, and I'm going to take all those frames and I'm going to move that. I have multiple eyebrows. I don't, but purple does. So let me delete that other eyebrow. I don't know why there's another one there. And let me do that again. So I'm going to hit T on the keyboard. So I'm going to select all my bones, click, and I'm going to go to frame 12 here. Make sure that there's a consistency between the two shapes there. That looks pretty good. I'll move that forward just a little bit. Keep that arc. Copy both of those keyframes and paste them. Okay. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to create my cycle here really quick. All right, very good. And the last is the mouth. The mouth could stay connected because the mouth is going to be connected to the face there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to drag out these 2 points. So I'm just going to highlight both these points, create a keyframe for those. Go to frame 12. Wants to do all of them again, but that's okay. And I'm just going to drag this out a little bit. So somewhere right about there. That looks pretty good. So I'm looking at it. The eye looks like it's moving a little bit quicker. We can fix that. I'm just going to do this real quick. Set a cycle. And I'm going to go to my relative keyframes there and set that back. Okay. So let's see. So that could be exaggerated. I guess we can cover that part of it in the next tutorial if you want to see overlapping action to kind of create some head bounce, some better arm movements there, maybe even some squashing and stretching. So let me know if that's something that you would like to see. Other than that, we basically have our walk cycle set up here. It's a pretty simple walk cycle. It took about half an hour to be able to create all this. So that looks pretty good. So this is basically your tutorial here, just to kind of give you the basics of a walk cycle, how to do it pretty effectively in Anime Studio. This I've learned studying a bunch of different techniques from Victor Paredes and Tom Roth and all sorts of animators that animate in Anime Studio. So I definitely owe them for my knowledge, along with any of the art and animation books that I also study. That has helped tremendously. So definitely keep practicing. Keep practicing this every day. This used to take me about, I don't know, like an hour or 2 hours to be able to get this down right. And other than teaching it, I can get this down in 15 minutes or so, or even quicker, because it's pretty simple now. And then what's so cool is you can separate this into different times, and you can do different walk cycles, which I would like to do. I would like to do different walk cycles with different characters. So just let me know what you'd like to see. And other than that, this is McCoy Buck, and I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. So let me know what you'd like to see in other videos. Also, be sure to join the Anime Studio Pros Facebook group, a group I created for you to learn, share, and collaborate with other Anime Studio animators. I'll see you later.